Just when the two of them were in a moment of being immersed in each other, there was a sudden sound outside the room. Look at the door handle. His heart also followed suit and beat faster. A moment of stagnation. The person outside the door finally chose to leave. Push the door open, seeing that the package has just been sent.
Who brought this package round?
Dr. Fang.
In panic, Kitty quickly contacted Charlie, who had just left, but the call had just begun, again interrupted by Waters, who had just returned.
What are you doing home?
I'm sorry, there's something I need to speak with you about.
Waters said to Kitty, they will go to a small town called Maidenfu. That's where cholera is spreading.
It would be madness for me to go. Why should I?
Kitty refuses verbally. Waters said there was no need to go. He will file for divorce in court and clarify all the reasons.
I'm afraid that you have thought me a bigger fool than I am.
Kitty suddenly realized. Turns out Waters knows everything. This trip is just a punishment from the other side. Things have come to this. Kitty also no longer hides. She sat back on the newly purchased sofa not long ago. Talked to Waters.
Charlie and I have fallen in love.
Waters laughed sarcastically. Laugh at his stupidity. He was also laughing sarcastically at himself. Laugh about your love and total sacrifice. But I can't stand a few words from others. Disharmony. A heated argument broke out between the two. Then there was a long silence.
I knew that you married me only to get as far away from your mother as possible. And I hoped that one day there'd be something more. I was wrong. You don't have it in you.
If a man hasn't what's necessary to make a woman love him, then it's his fault.
I've known Kitty for a long time. She's persistent. Waters offered him a second option. As long as Charlie is willing to officially be with him, he agreed to break up peacefully. In the consulate, Kitty quickly found Charlie. As soon as I found out what happened, Charlie chose to retreat. It's just a joke. How could he ignore his family for Kitty? So, Kitty followed Waters on his journey to Maidenfu. 3-day journey by road and waterway. However, Waters had to change his route and make the 2-week journey. Hot weather, mosquito bite. This is the lesson he wants to teach Kitty. He even prepared a wheelchair full of rocks. He's not cruel enough, but kind enough. Closer to the disaster area, he felt the suffering of the people here even more. So, his simple car, he can't do it anymore either. Open the yard door. It is a ramshackle tile-roofed house that has been prepared for a long time. Quite different from the cleanliness and tidiness in Shanghai. It's messy and dusty here.
I wouldn't touch that if I was you. They may have died in that bed. This can be your room.
The sky was completely dark. He asked if he had been vaccinated yet. He said he didn't need the injection.
You needn't bother with me then.
Suit yourself.
The next day, Waters arrived in town early in the morning. Go where there are the most patients. In this place where mourning is everywhere. For the first time, he truly felt the fragility of life and the responsibilities of a medical doctor. While Kitty, who has a favorable life, still does not accept it. She wrote a letter to Charlie. Express your last hope in a letter asking for help. Turn it over to an assistant who can send the message. Kitty explains her intentions. Look at the recipient's name on the letter. The assistant looked thoughtful. He said to Kitty, Charlie is a cool person, but his wife never interfered.
I once heard her say that she found it most unflattering that the women who fell for her husband were so consistently second-rate.
It was as if the curtain had been opened, taking away the statue that hit its most sensitive point. Kitty kept her outward calm, but in her heart she understood clearly. As Waters said, from start to finish, she is a stupid and ignorant woman. Since living here, Waters never looked Kitty straight in the eye. She is like a sharp thorn. Every look, it will hit the softest spot in his heart. Very hurt. She eats raw vegetables to challenge his ignorance and coldness, to protest his disregard and indifference. He was silent for a while, then, get the vegetables as she wants. They hurt each other, but they all have no other choice. Waters continued to work hard on the front lines throughout the day, even though he was physically and mentally tired. But that sense of responsibility, always making him not dare to slack off at all. That day he looked for Kitty, tell her that the orphanage director wants to see her.
I don't want to venture into the center of the epidemic.
If you're not afraid, why should I be?
Oh, God.
Walter! Oh my God! You drunk!
Next morning, Kitty went on a small boat with the guidance of an assistant. Coming to an orphanage is also quite poor. The director smiled and welcomed, and brought a plate of specially prepared cakes to the distinguished guests.
Sister Saint Joseph made them for you herself this morning.
After a conversation, Kitty noticed Whether as a camp director or a monk, everyone seems to respect her a lot. And only when you finish visiting and prepare to return. The words of a nun holding a baby tell about Waters and the director.
Le docteur adore les bébés. Dès qu'il a un peu de temps libre,
Their faces were full of respect. After a while of thinking, Kitty noticed that the respect she is receiving comes from Waters. It turned out that he was a simple man, a person with such noble morals. Admirable. That evening, Kitty cooks food herself for the first time. She brought her meal to the office. Seeing Waters lying down at the table sleeping, gently placed the food down. She started looking. Look at the tools on the table. Look at the drawings full of markup. Look at her neglected face. Open a corner of the curtain. This is the first real beginning. Want to get to know Walter.
What do you want?
Oh, sorry. What's that you're doing?
Can't possibly interest you.
She wants to talk seriously, but Walter refuses to communicate. The wounds of the past always tear him apart. Kitty doesn't want to give up. Before going to bed, she looked for Walter again.
God's sakes, Walter, will you stop punishing me?
Do you absolutely despise me?
No, I despise myself
Why?
for allowing myself to love you once.
Long silence. Until Kitty left the room, she didn't say anything. Sadness filled Walter's eyes. Heard crying from outside. He could only stand there looking into the distance. Just like Waters said, in this relationship, the most loving party will be punished. The virus is still spreading. To find out why, Walter collects river water samples. But during the research process, he accidentally knocked over the research jar. He didn't care about his broken finger. Go to the orphanage. In some corner, I met Kitty. I was about to ask, but Kitty turned around and left in a hurry. Turns out it's to escape boring days. Also, to make life more meaningful, Kitty voluntarily went to see the director and expressed interest in helping here, even though it's always busy and messy. But those adorable baby faces always makes her smile.
You know, these really aren't the best times for a Western woman to go exploring a Chinese town by herself.
Oh, do be quiet.
Kitty's sudden change surprised Waters a bit. Not long ago, she is still a selfish and pampered stupid woman. He looked towards her. For the first time, he truly relaxed and shared with her about work. She simply replied, then she blew the folded pinwheel. And in his eyes, just patience and worry. Today I passed by the orphanage. Waters saw Kitty playing the piano. A familiar melody rang out. Suddenly, he remembered Kitty's original image. Elegant, makes people dare not approach. And now, after going through the change, become incredibly beautiful and gentle, he was looking straight ahead, suddenly realized, it turns out all the strong hatred, it all stems from his deeper love and memories. The painful past has hurt him. Everything disappears in this moment. An unconscious way. The two began to sit together calmly. Start chatting normally. Start being able to laugh when talking about the past.
I suppose you're right. It was silly of us to look for qualities in each other that we never had.
Yes. Yes, it was.
The veil between two people cannot be torn away. Now it is gradually falling. When Waters discovered that the river water was also contaminated, he removed infected corpses from the riverbank and blockade of water sources downstream. And this move makes local residents hateful. Local leaders reminded.
I'd advise any Westerners to stay indoors.
All right.
After the leader leaves, Walter seemed to suddenly think of something. He quickly went to the orphanage, searched for Kitty, but learned from the nun, Kitty had left a few minutes earlier. His heart sank. Walter hurriedly ran out. Meanwhile, Kitty is surrounded by a large group of people, due to different languages. The other party's mood became even more uncontrolled. Important time. Walter appeared promptly. He stood in front of Kitty. Try your best to protect her. Until the soldiers' guns rang out, the two of them walked out of here smoothly. On the calm lake, she turned back to look at him. This was the first time she felt so comfortable. This moment, the love that had been hidden for so long was quietly born. Bright smile. In this terrible place of death, he no longer has the obsession. Looking far away, she still saw that person, still so passionate about his work. They go on the same boat. He admired the beautiful scenery. He looked at the beautiful person. The ear touches the water, accompanied by the chirping of birds in the mountains. He held her hand, like the first time he introduced his work to her. She smiled and listened, no more feeling bored. He is still the same Walter as before, but he understood her. This love comes too late, but even stronger and more intense. That day Kitty was teaching the children to dance, but suddenly felt nauseous. She then rushed to the corner and vomited. When you wake up, the dean happily told her, she is pregnant with a cute baby. As soon as these words came out, Kitty's mind suddenly went blank. She cannot be happy. Soon Walter came in a hurry. After learning that Kitty was not infected, it's pregnancy news. Joy filled his face. Just seeing Kitty's face, the smile gradually disappeared. He took a deep breath. Ask, are you the father?
I honestly don't know. I'm sorry.
Well, it doesn't matter now. Does it?
No. No, it doesn't.
Kitty walked over and hugged Walter tightly. After a bit of hesitation, Walter returned the hug. At this time, Kitty completely surrendered to her love. With this man, completely and to the bone. The water will rotates. Clean water is brought to the village. Walter's efforts were not in vain. He has successfully controlled the epidemic here, but the wave has no end. One wave after another arose. A large number of refugees from outside the town are migrating here. To prevent the town from being infected again, he led the guards to intercept the refugees at the foot of the mountain. Dawn that day, Walter soon arrived at Kitty's bed. Lightly kiss her forehead. Then, without hesitation, he ran to the refugee camp. What he left her? Just a soldier can protect her from all dangers. That evening, Kitty woke up in the middle of a dream.
噩耗随之而来。
It's your husband.
What? What is it?
He's been taken ill.
Kitty's heart beat loudly. She ran frantically to the refugee camp. Enter the tent. It was Walter, who was extremely weak. She did not listen to the assistant's advice, determined to stay with him, and he quickly lost all strength to speak. Until the angel called him. He used his last strength. Calling away, Kitty was hugging him tightly. Under dim light, he looked at her smiling through tears.
Forgive.
Forgive you. There's nothing to forgive. Walter. I'm sorry.
Dawn comes. Kitty walked out of the tent. In this strange country, finally, he turned into a golden sand hill. Leave her alone to stand quietly. She took back Walter's personal items. Put them back where they belong. As if by the way, she can be by Walter's side. Time passes fast. London streets many years later. In the flower castle where he proposed to Kitty, she still makes it look beautiful, but be a little more restrained and calm. Next to her is a boy. And the boy took Walter's place next to Kitty. In this world, there are loyal people. It takes time to shine. There are people everywhere. But it only shines for a moment, only when clarifying. Only then can true love be pursued. Never be too arrogant. Eyes covered by mask. Missing someone you can only meet once in your life.